What's up guys, this is Vic and today I'm going to show you how to get started with Slack Chatbot, and I'm going to show you in this tutorial how to set up a database, how to set up the code, configure it properly, and get it up and running. By the end of this tutorial, you're going to have a fully functional Slack Chatbot application that you can test and play with locally. So let's get started. The first thing we want to do is download our database and take care of database stuff. So to do that, I'm going to go to postgresapp.com because we're going to be using the Postgres database, and I'm going to download that app. I'm also going to use a GUI tool for a Postgres table database. It's going to be a lot easier to do database querying using a GUI tool, so I'm going to go ahead and download that as well. While I wait for that, I'm going to unzip this file and drop that into the applications folder. I am going to install the Postgres database, and that might take a little bit, but I'm going to use that time to explain why I chose Postgres. I could have chosen MongoDB or MySQL, but Postgres combines both of those. It's, in my opinion, the best of both worlds because it supports relational and non-relational querying on it, and it's really easy to get it set up on Mac. And so for that reason I chose Postgres. You could also do MongoDB or MySQL. So now that we have that installed, I'm going to go ahead and open that Postgres app. Perfect. I'm going to open that, and we don't see anything in here because it hasn't been initialized. There's no data yet. So we're going to click this initialize button, and we're going to see that Postgres will automatically create by default three different databases: Chatbot Tutorials, Postgres, and Template. And we're going to go double click the Chatbot Tutorials database, and in the bash script we're going to type in a few different commands. First, we're going to create a user in the database for the database, and then we're going to create a table for our data in the database, and then finally we're going to connect those two, and we're going to assign that table to the user so that the user can manipulate the data, can add, delete, and etc. So the first thing that we want to do is create the user. So we're going to do this: create role, test user, login, with login, password, create DB. Perfect. So I created a user called test user, and I gave it a password, and I created that. I'm going to do du to make sure that it's created, and you see test user has been created. Then the next thing we're going to do is create a database. To do that, we're going to do create database. We're going to call that testdb. We're going to do list to make sure it's created, and testdb is right there. It has been created. Finally, we want to grant all privileges on database to test user. So we assign that database to the user. Perfect. So now that we have our database set up, we're going to open pSQL, and we're going to make a connection to the database. And this is the first thing we see, so I'm going to fill in some of this information. Our host is localhost because we run this locally. Our port is 5432. This is the default port. User is test user, password is password, and our database is testdb. Perfect. So now we're connected to the database, and we don't see anything in here because there's no tables, there's nothing in there. So that's the next step. So this completes our database setup. The next, what we want to do is download some code and set up a Slack app. So the first thing that we're going to do next is go to github.com and go to Chatbot Tutorials GitHub profile. In here, I've provided the code for this tutorial. It's under Slack Postgres Chatbot. we're going to clone this repo locally. I'm going to open this and I'm going to say git clone that repo. So now that we have our repo, I'm going to go into the repo and npm install. I'm going to install all the library dependencies that are in there. While I wait on that, I'm also going to start up ngrok HTTP connection on port 3000. So I'm going to expose port 3000, and this is how I'm going to communicate with Slack. While we wait for this to install, let's see, it's taking a little bit of time. Perfect. So now we have our repo, or have our dependencies installed. I'm going to ls, I want to make sure, nice, we have all our files in there. And great, perfect. So the next thing we want to do is create a Slack application. And to do that, we're going to go through api/slack.com. We're going to go into the Your Apps button, top right, and we're going to create an app. So every Slack chatbot, if you wanted that chatbot to be distributed by multiple teams, you need to create a Slack app for it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and fill in this information. So I'm going to call it test bot. I'm going to assign it to this chatbot playground workspace. And boom, it's created. Perfect. So now that we have our Slack app created, we need to fill in these credentials to our code. We're going to open our, we're going to open the directory we just cloned. I'm going to do that right now. You can use different IDE, and we're going to go into this env file, and we want to paste in our credentials here. So the client ID is that. Client secret is that. This is port 3000. Our database host, this is the database information. That's localhost. This is 5432 as our database. It's the default port. Test user, test DB, and password as our password. Perfect. Now that we have this configured, we're going to go into our repository and say npm start. We're going to start that server. And just as we started, we see that there have been a few things that happened, and this is the table creation. We're going to go into our GUI viewer. I'm going to reset that, and right there we can see the default tables that were created when we run our app. And those are the Botkit channels, Botkit teams, Botkit users, which are Botkit specific. And then we have our channels table, our users table, and our workspace table. And these are empty right now, but we'll have some data in a little bit. Perfect. So now that we have that configured, we want to go back into our Slack application and we want to actually connect it. So the first thing we want to do is go to the bot users and add a bot user. We're going to call it test bot. We're going to show it always on. We're going to add that bot user. Next up, we want to set up the event subscription. We want to subscribe to Slack events, and we're going to do that by, let's copy our ngrok URL. We're going to set that on, Slack, receive. This is our endpoint that we're going to use, and we're going to add two events, messages IM, messages channels. Save those changes. We're going to hook up the OAuth and permissions page, and then this page is needed because we're going to log in with the Slack button. We're going to add a new redirect URL, OAuth, save, and perfect. That's it. So now what we want to do is install our app. So at this point, your code is up and running. You have a successful database set up, and we have a Slack app connection so that we've told Slack to know where to post the events. And the last thing that we have to do is actually install this app to our team, their Slack team. So to do that, I'm going to click this Add to Slack button, and I'm going to open it in a new tab. It's going to ask for me to grant those permissions. This is the team I'm going to install the Slack chatbot to. I'm going to click the Authorize button. And perfect. So we see this onboarding message, and we see, let's see what it said. Hi, I'm a bot that just joined your workspace. I'm going to say hello. Perfect. Hi, you're in the workspace ID. Perfect. So we see that our chatbot is functional. It's up and running. And just to verify that we have stored all this information, I'm going to go into my pSQL client. I'm going to refresh this connection again. And I'm going to open Workspace. So right there, we saw that we have our workspace, our team, which is Chatbot Playground. This is the ID. It's kind of the access tokens, domains, bot user ID, all that stuff. We have our user table, and it has only one user. That's just me. That's the only user in that table. And we have some of the basic information, email address. We have our channels. So this team, if you can see here, has 2 public channels. I made this extra private channel just to make sure that I don't incorporate that when I create this team. Essentially, when my app is installed to this team, I'm grabbing all the active users. So those are users that are not deleted and they're not bots. And I'm grabbing all the public channels, which in this case is 2. It's general and random. And I can see that in the channels table. So perfect. So that's it. That's you. At this point, you should have a functional Slack chatbot up and running that is going to respond. The only thing it's going to respond to is hello, but you can go ahead and extend it and go ahead and use your imagination to create whatever else you want. See how easy it is, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I will monitor them and answer them, and I hope this was very clear, and I hope it was demonstrated how easy it is to get started, and good luck.